Call to order of the Watertown City Council meeting for September 21st, is it? 20th. September 20th of 2021. We'll first rise for a moment of silence. I want to take a moment of silence for two longtime Watertown residents who have done a lot for the community. One is Bob Fain, who passed away recently, and then Jan Schul as well. So please rise with me, take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And now we will have a prayer led by our city councilman, Dan Schutte.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you have blessed us with to be able to live and move and breathe and just be about this life that you've given each one of us individually. We gather here tonight collectively. There's others, as Bob and Jan, we had a moment of silence for their passing, and we just pray for their families, your peace over their families. Thank you for what they have done to further this community and wherever their abilities took them throughout their life. Now tonight as we gather, I pray give us the wisdom to navigate through this and unify. May we unify not just as a council, but there may be decisions that vary from one to another, but may we unify and have a common goal, common purpose, and even as a city as a whole, all who call Watertown home. I just pray may we continue to unify more as a city and give us the wisdom to navigate through tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge of Allegiance. Finance Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Okay. Bueller. Here. Danforth. Here. Holine.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Schutte.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Villahauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Quorum established. With that, the chair will entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Let me just make a note on that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to a public comments section. I want anyone who is here for public comments, please sign in. But in lieu of that, if you haven't already signed in, just please come forward to the mic. State your name, who you are representing, and as long as it's not on the council agenda tonight, you are free to address the council.
I live at 1104 23rd Street Northeast. We have a slough behind our house, between our house and the bike path. We have more bugs than we can stand in the summer, and the birds come up there after the bugs fall out of our bug zapper and eat and make a big mess on our deck out there. It makes an absolute mess of it, and it stinks. It's bad. And I had the city engineer up to look at it, and all he done was him and haw it around and left. And that's all. And another thing I bring up is the city streets are in terrible shape, and you want to fund a new skating rink, and I'm not against that. But what I'm against is you're not fixing the streets. If you're going to fund something, fund the city streets. Money for that, so that we can get these streets fixed up. Over in front of the county jail over there on 2nd Avenue, there's holes all over. They've been there all summer. Nobody's done it. They're that big. And 12th Avenue up here, right at the end of 23rd Street, northeast, is that street there, a block of it so bad that it's broke up into little pieces, you know, and big holes in that. Nobody comes around. Nobody fixed any streets. Broadway from 1st Avenue all the way to 212 is just a mess, full of holes and cracks. What I think you guys should look into, if you're going to have them come and do a relay over the top and route some of it off the bottom and relay it, there's a machine out there that will pick it up, grind it up, and lay it right behind the machine and add oil to it, and you'll have a lot better road and it'll last a lot longer. They did that on Highway 20 from Crocker to Highway 37, and that road is as smooth as the top of this floor, and that's over 12 years ago. No cracks, no nothing. And they did it up on the Interstate 94, just west of Fargo. Did the same thing there, but that's only been 5 years ago since I've seen that up there. But that's working out fine from what I hear. I think you should take a look at that. You don't have to haul any back. You don't have any regrind, but it's laid right back down, and it's stronger, lasts longer. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Would you please identify yourself?
Lauren Howe.
Okay, I didn't know if you did. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further public comments? Is it a public comment then? Okay, I can allow that.
Okay, it's addressed to the City of Watertown, the City Council, and all the City of Watertown. This is from the Senior Center, just to thank you for our donation is warmly received and appreciated. We are so glad that you concerned that we are trying to achieve for the seniors at this nonprofit organization. We never want the seniors to feel like they no longer are of value to the community, or that we no longer feel they need to provide for them with the purpose of affordable entertainment. So we'd like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the $5,800 you gave us for the networking, and also the money that we allowed them for the privacy curtain. I would like to say thank you again for your generosity, and hoping once the new building is up and operational, that you'll be able to join us and see how much your donation means for our organization.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Do you have Councilman first let me approve the agenda. Councilman Schutte, were you going to second? So Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Councilman Paulson, did you have something to say?
Yes, I'll recuse myself on E, F, and J.
Thank you very much. With that, the motion is to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. First item on the agenda is item A. The chair will hereby declare a public hearing open.
Mayor?
Oh, sorry.
Did you mean aye? Oh, excuse me. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, you're using on, just so we make sure, it'll be the Valley View, and then the Platte, and then the purchase of the land, right? Yes. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, regular agenda item A, the chair will hereby declare a public hearing open on the application for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-off malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine video lottery license from Harry's Haircuts and Hot Towels LLC to Guest House Incorporated. For a staff report, we will go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzine.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Before the council is a transfer of the malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license, and this is with the video lottery. Everything was noticed in the paper. Everything's in order. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments, either written or oral, in favor of this item? Anyone wish to testify in favor? Seeing none, are there any comments, either written or oral, against this item? Seeing none, the chair will close the public hearing and open it up for a motion from the council.
So moved.
So a motion to approve the transfer is made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any comments on that, Councilman Tupper? Or
I do have a question with A and B, because they kind of go hand in hand. We're transferring an ownership of retail on-off sale, malt beverage and farm wine license, and then they're also reapplying for a new license. Is that correct?
Can I answer that one? Okay. So what is happening here is there's currently all of the licenses with the video lottery are kind of at the max. So what's happening is the Harry's is selling to the guests, and so then they need to have another license so that they can continue to sell the beer. So they're essentially getting rid of their video lottery. Yep.
Councilman Vilhauer.
Just a follow-up, because I was going to ask the same question that Councilman Tupper was going to ask, but Kristen, you alluded to it, but I think it might be worth noting, because I wasn't sure myself until I reached out to you and City Attorney Roby this morning, that there is a limit to the number of video lottery licenses that we are allowed in Watertown, which necessitated this action, but I was not aware of that, so I think just for general information, there is a limit to the number of video lottery licenses that we can issue in Watertown.
Thank you. Any further comments from the council? Comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the transfer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to agenda item B, which is, and the chair will declare a public hearing open for the application of a new retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license to Harry's Haircuts and Hot Towels LLC. With that, we'll go to Kristen Bobzien, our finance officer, for a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing really new on this. This would be Harry's establishing their malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments, either written or oral, in favor of this item? Seeing none, are there any comments against this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Is there a motion to approve the application? Motion made by Councilman Paulson and seconded by Councilman Tupper. Councilman Paulson, you have the right to speak first on this if you want. He declines. Does there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of the approval, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Motion carries. Agenda item C. We'll open a public hearing on the application for a new retail on-off malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license to Stone Oil Company Incorporated, doing business as Prairie Stop. For a staff report, we'll go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one is for a new retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license at the Prairie Stop. The notice was put in the paper, and it also did receive verification from the Community Development Department as far as the location. So everything is also in order on this license.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments, either oral or written, in favor of this? Seeing none, are there any comments against? Hearing none, the chair will open it up for a motion from the council. Motion made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Any comments on that? Any comments from the council or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the application, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D. Chair will open a public hearing for a second reading of City Ordinance number 21-34, an emergency ordinance adding Title 25 to the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown pertaining to medical cannabis regulations and uses within the City of Watertown, South Dakota. For a staff report, we will go to our City Attorney, Matt Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse my voice. I'm just trying to get my voice back after last week. But anyway, as the council will recall, our cannabis program is being instituted, or the city's cannabis ordinance structure is being instituted under, there was two separate ordinances. There's Ordinance 2136 and Ordinance 2134. Ordinance 2136 was our peer zoning ordinance, which was approved at a second reading on September 7th that zoned the 4 different types of cannabis uses. Ordinance 2134 was also considered for a second reading at the September 7th meeting. 2134, of course, provides the rules for licensing, the licensing procedures, as well as some other aspects of the cannabis special permitted uses. So at the last reading, the council made a motion to amend 2134 to increase the license fee for the 4 types of cannabis uses from $5,000 per year to $25,000. That's the initial fee as well as the renewal fee. And because of that substantial change, what tonight's action is technically a second reading to be considered for final approval tonight. The only other note I would make is because the state's rules go into effect October 4th, tonight's action has an emergency clause attached to it so that the ordinance can take effect prior to the state's rules taking effect. So there's no, we don't have a gap there of the rules being in effect. So any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any comments, either written or oral, in favor of this agenda item? Anyone here to testify for? Any testimony against this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for a motion from the council.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Villauer, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Councilman Villauer, you have the right to start us off.
I guess my only comment is I'm in favor of this. I feel like we thoroughly vetted this 2 weeks ago, and the week before that. It was a tough decision on the part of all of us as we, looked through this. I do again want to thank the committee. I'm looking at City Attorney Roby and others within the staff for their work on this. But I would encourage this body to support this ordinance.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councilman Tupper.
I would totally agree with what Glenn just said, and there's been a lot of hard work and dedication put into this. I do have one question as far as we figured out how they're going to apply or when they can apply, or?
So, excuse me, assuming final passage tonight, we'll start putting together an application form. I have a couple examples from a couple other communities in the state, and again, the state's rules will be in effect October 4th, so October 5th, folks could probably start coming up here and starting to fill out those applications. And this is all new territory for everybody, so I'm guessing there's going to be some kind of hand-in-hand coordination with the state as well as the city. And so if you're interested in applying for one of these licenses, I would kind of simultaneously come here as well as contact the Department of Health to get both processes started at the same time. And then we'll all be kind of learning as we go here. But there will be applications put together here in the next couple weeks.
Did we ever decide how we're going to choose?
Well, as the ordinance is written currently, the cultivation facilities, manufacturing facilities, and testing facilities do not have a limit. And so folks will come up here, we'll have to identify a parcel that is conforming to our zoning ordinance. They'll have to go to the state, meet their rules, and assuming all of those boxes are checked, they'll be issued a license from the city as well as a registration from the state. On the dispensary side, the ordinance is currently a limit of 3. The way it's written is essentially they'll come up here, we'll identify and make sure that they've selected a proper location, that they paid the fee, and then they'll go to the state, meet all their requirements, and if there are still more than 3 applicants that are viable at the end of that process, the state has a process that they're going to be using to select that. Essentially, it's a random drawing that they'll allow the folks to watch the drawing and select the number 3 in this case.
And there is a kind of a point system the state uses also, right?
Yeah, so that would happen first. So they would first have to go through that point system, and assuming the random drawing would only come into effect if all else is equal. So if there's 5 applications, for example, they've met the city requirements, they go to the state, they go through that point system, their business plan checks out, everything, they're not a violent felon, et cetera, at the state level, assuming they get to the very end, and they're tied, the state will have a random drawing to determine who gets those licenses.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth.
Matt, I got a question. So any application or approval then will never come back to the council, correct? It'll be an administrative thing from the city standpoint, go to the state. however the dust settles out there, then it just proceeds. So it will not come back to council like we just did with some of the liquor license type things, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any follow-up? Councilman Paulson hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm just going to start by saying I think we're going down the wrong path here. I do not agree with this. I do not agree with the limit. I do not agree with a limit with a $25,000 fee. And I just, we're going down the wrong path. And I was going to comment earlier, I don't think we should be limiting any licenses if we control it. So that's, I do not support this.
Thank you. Councilman Bueller.
You have a question and a comment. This would be for Attorney Roby. The $25,000, I just want to be clear, is 5 of that 25 the part that goes to the state, or is it a total of 30 then?
25 is just the city's license, and the
Okay.
state's license is $5,000.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yep.
But I just want it noted that I do not support the limitation on 3, mainly due to the selection process that we're looking at. And I agree with what Colin said. I really don't support this in its current form. I do feel that it should be unlimited, and I do feel that $25,000 annually is somewhat punitive. So I just want that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
I do get one.
Councilman Tupper.
Attorney Roby, so the question was asked that this body won't pick the people, but every year we'll come back to the council for renewal, just like a liquor license.
I don't believe so. It's an administrative process. Right, yeah. Now, the council, of course, has purview over the ordinances. And so to the extent that the council wants to institute changes to the process via ordinance, that's certainly your prerogative.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, the chair would like to just make a statement on this, because at the last time we dealt with this, I voted in favor of the proposal for $25,000 application fee with no limits. In the end, it got amended to a limit of 3. Upon further reflection, I totally understand where fellow councilmen will vote for that limit of 3. I'm going to go back and switch my vote to go against this simply because I don't think that we should limit it. And that was my original vote. But we do have to pass something, and I totally understand every councilman's opinion one way or another on this. This is a bold new frontier for the entire state of South Dakota. We're just trying to figure this out. And there's no promise we get everything right the first time. So there's no hard feelings at all up here. I hope there is none out in the community. We're just trying to find our best path forward. City Attorney Roby, did you have a comment?
Yeah, if I might, I guess I would advise that if the council is truly feeling like they'd like to hash this through a little more, you could take your time to do that. There is a slight risk if we don't have rules firmly in place by the time the state's rules are in place. There is a slight risk there that an operator could get what's called an investment-backed expectation, or they could seek out and take some course of action that they think they could do, but then find out they can't later. Essentially, what that comes down to. But that risk is small, assuming something gets passed fairly quickly, assuming we don't delay too long. But if the council truly feels like they need more time to hash through this, I think you should consider that.
I think, at least from my perspective, because all of the comments and questions were already, finished, and I just made mine. I think everyone is pretty comfortable with their vote. I think we've spent a lot of time on this issue, and as I already said, there's no promise that this is going to be perfect the first time out, and we'll just move on forward and do the best that we can. Councilman Danforth.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I have no problem, but I think we need to get something in place. I think that tonight and in the short term, that's got to be our goal, and that's got to be our intent. I have no problem having additional discussion and looking at this thing. I don't care whether it's weeks down the road or 6 months down the road or whatever it is. Once it gets onto the ground and starts running and things start happening, we can make decisions. And the things that have been mentioned tonight have been maybe a reduction in fee, or it might be an expansion in the number of dispensaries, whether that's unlimited or some other number. Where we're at today is a safe harbor, safe ground to go, because it's a lot easier for us to expand the number of dispensaries versus pulling back. It's a lot easier for us to come out with a higher fee today and pull that back 6 months or a year from now than it is to come out with a smaller fee and then really increase it because we find our costs higher. So personally, I think we're going down the right path. It is conservative, but we have the ability to make those changes. There is no time frame for us to do that as far as limitedness. So let's get something. We have the proposal. We have the proposed amendment or ordinance. Let's get it voted in, and then let's have discussions if we need to in regards to those open issues, and we can make changes if we need.
Thank you very much. I would give, if someone on the opposition wanted to speak, you could, but we have talked about this at length, and I'm comfortable taking this to a vote. But I will do a roll call vote. Kristen, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Bueller,
Nope.
Danforth,
Yes.
Pauline,
No.
Paulson,
No.
Shetty,
Yes.
Tupper,
Yes.
Billhauer.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item E, and the chair will open a public hearing on the second reading of ordinance number 21-38, amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota for a portion of block 8 and 9 of the Platte of Valley View 3rd Edition from R1 Single Family Residential District to R2 Single Family Attached Residential District. For staff comments, we will go to our Community Development Manager, Stacy Bungard. Just a minute, we're not hearing you quite right. Give us just a moment. Make sure we've got it right on our end.
Okay, is that better?
That is better. I did want to
All
just
right.
make, actually, Stacy, before you begin, I want to make something clear to anybody watching this, because this was made a comment, and I don't want anyone to think that our staff is off in Chicago or New York or whatever that skyline is behind your head. That is just a filter that you can place on your computer. So if any of our staff shows up on a beach in Hawaii, that does not mean that they are actually there. I just want to say that. So with that, Community Development Manager Stacy Bungard, would you please take it away?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we're looking at today is the owner, J&J Land Sales, which is Jamie Andrews, has petitioned to rezone a portion of Block 8 and 9 in Valley View Edition, the third phase. And basically, the property was recently annexed and zoned, and it was recently zoned R1. Since the developer would like to change that to R2 zoning, and it is appropriate within the adopted comprehensive plan. And then also it's appropriate as transitional zoning to have the R2 in there. Important to note that the lots proposed to be rezoned to R2 do not abut lots that have already been sold as R1. So it's important to note that. And then also it'll be a subsequent action. So the lot lines will be adjusted following this action item. Plan Commission did recommend approval unanimously on August 19th. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any other written or oral comments in favor of this item? Seeing none, are there any comments against this item? Hearing none, I will declare the public hearing closed and open it up for a motion of approval from the council. Moved by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Councilman Danforth, would you like to begin?
Yeah, really, it's more of a, well, it's a question. I used to sit on the Plan Commission, Board of Adjustments for a lot of years, as well as Councilman Bueller has as well. Historically, and maybe things have changed, but historically we have been hesitant to intermix the various zones that we have, call it spot zoning, so to speak, and where we've used R3, R2, R1 as transitioning planning for residential areas. And I guess my question is, we seem to, in this scenario, we seem to kind of just be plopping in some R2s in the middle of R1s, and which is historically not how we would do that. Just curious if we have a change of direction on what we have for how we develop our residential areas. It would certainly seem like it to me, and maybe Councilman Bueller has some thoughts on that as well. But again, this is just, it is contrary to what I would have been used to on the Plan Commission.
Councilman, would you like to make that an official question to our community development manager?
Yeah, to whomever can answer that question. Yep.
Sure. Stacy, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yes, I understand that traditionally communities have looked at more of a Euclidean-based zoning where all of the R1 and R2 are separate. In this particular case, you can already see that there's an intermix of R1 and R2 based on the map that I think I have pulled up for you to take a look at here. Anyhow, I do believe it's the developer's vision to set this up as smaller lots and then having an intermix of R1 and R2, and that was the request we received. So I'm not sure if the developer is present, but maybe they can talk more about their vision and goals from a comprehensive standpoint, comprehensive plan standpoint. The intermixing is okay at the R1 and R2 levels.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth, are you satisfied with that answer?
Well, I can't say I'm not, but it probably is a change directionally than what I am accustomed to. So, you know, I know the two R2 areas here, you know, they do serve their purpose where they've been, but to, I must use the word plop, to plop this R2 in there is, to me, it's questionable. But if that's a standard that we're using now, then, you know, then I suppose that's okay. But do we know what that hashed line area to the north of that is planned to be?
Stacy, would you like to answer that question?
I'm gonna call on Brandy to see if she knows off to the top of her head on that one. I'm thinking it might be R1, but
City Engineer Brandy Hanton.
Yes. Yep. I can help you out there, Stacy. Hopefully.
Perfect.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So this on the preliminary plan for Valley View, it is shown as R1, but we would see that they would probably bring that in as R2. You can kind of see on the map that Stacy has pulled up that greenish blue shading there where the black hatched is. So that to the north of where the yellow hatch is, those lots that are shown there, those would be brought in as R2 as well. And then just to point out as well, the solid yellow area there, it's kind of awkward because so Stacy's doing my mouse work there. That is already zoned R2, the single family attached. So they kind of want to change the direction just to offer different housing needs in this area that you can see will eventually be platted all with that street that's a court actually. So
And also, if I could just add, it does take in, all of this would be R2, so this would be essentially the block, and then we are anticipating this to be, you know, essentially a full block here, and having the single family across the street, it would not be uncommon in a development such as this.
All right, thank you. Councilman Bueller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reinforce what Mike said. Over time, over the many years that we've been involved in planning issues, we typically like to transition from R1 to R2 to R3, then to commercial. And so I hope we're looking at it that way. In this case, I think it's not developed. And if it were developed, you know, they would, if the intention was to develop that R1, they'd know that there's R2 across the street. You know, but I think that is really important for our planning folks to adhere to when they develop these places. Thank you.
I will, Councilman Paulson, and I call you Councilman Paulson, not private citizen here, because I've closed the public hearing. So even though you have recused yourself from the vote, you can still comment upon this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So I am representing J&J Earthworks and Land Sales.
Not right now you are.
Well, okay. So, okay, Councilman Paulson is fine. So I think...
I suppose because, I mean, we all have lives outside of council, so you can comment from your profession, but
Yes.
you are speaking in a capacity as a council person right now.
Okay.
Whether or not,
I will.
because the public hearing has been closed.
Okay. So I guess we're trying to work with, the intention is to work with the home builders to create housing. We have a severe housing need in Watertown. So that's kind of why this is transitioning to R2. But we work with each individual builder that is buying these lots, that is building the houses. So it's not necessarily us doing this, but we are working with them to try to make it as many houses as we can get right now, because I mean, we can't keep these lots on the market for very long at all. So they're flying off. We obviously have that need, and so we're trying to work with them as much as we can.
Thank you. And we do appreciate your insight. Sorry, I just need to clarify that for going forward, what is public and what is or council. So any further comments or questions from the council? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the amending of zoning map, of the zoning map to the city. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item F. Council approval of resolution number 21-38, approving the plat of Valley View 4th Edition to the Municipality of Watertown in the County of Coddington, South Dakota. Again, we will go to our Community Development Manager, Stacy Bungard, for comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this property is actually the same property that we just looked at, and the landowner, again, Jamie Andrews with J&J Land Sales, would like to replat these lots to be make them deeper, essentially from about 117 feet in depth to 123 feet, allowing for that additional 6 feet in depth. And then that would conform to the R2 standards and allow for potential duplexes or two-family to be constructed. And I'll pull that up for you here. Again, same land area, just looking at the plat, which would be the new plat. These lots are a little bit deeper and they're getting a little bit more into this outlot X. So these are the particular lots here. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Although this is a resolution, is there anyone here who would like to testify on this? Seeing none, we will open it up for a motion from the council for approval of the resolution. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Councilman Tupper, you have the right to speak first if you would like to take it. No? Is there anyone else from the council who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor of this ordinance passing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G is second read. Sorry, we just did no. Item G is second reading of ordinance number 21-39, authorizing the finance officer to certify the property tax levy to the Coddington County Auditor. For staff comment, we'll go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 2139 does allow me to certify the property tax levy that'll be payable in 2022. That will be the amount of $3,931,400. This is our standard CPI plus the growth, so it is the max that we can take. If there's any questions, I can try to answer them.
Thank you very much. Although this is a resolution, is there anyone who would like to testify on this? Seeing none, we will open it up for an approval of this ordinance from the council. Councilman Paulson makes the motion. Councilman Vilhauer seconds it. Councilman Paulson, would you like to lead off comments? Seeing none, is there any other questions or comments from the council? Councilman Vilhauer.
I guess just a comment that I'll direct towards our finance officer. This is out of our normal cycle of what we normally would do things relative to our budget. You just want to expound on that just a little bit, Finance Officer Bobzien.
Thank you, Councilman Vilhauer. This is a little bit different than the public might be used to. Normally, this is incorporated into our budget ordinance that usually takes place in September, and now will be taking place in November. So same process we have to stick to with what the county needs in terms of the October 1st deadline. So this gets us in line with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those who are in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, sorry. Item H, hit the cord on that one, sorry. Item H is first reading of ordinance number 21-40, amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District and PUD Planned Unit Development for portions of CAX Addition. And for that, we'll go to our Community Development Manager, Stacy Bungard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this basically, Steve Horning is the acting agent for CAX Lakeside Addition, and he has submitted a petition to rezone a portion of this property that you have up on the screen from A1, which is our agricultural district, to our R1 single family district, and then also a portion of it to PUD. Sort of the goal with the PUD is to be able to have larger lots and then have a building envelope within those lots to stay out of some of the wetland areas, but then also have established some setbacks and have a different larger lot rural residential type feel to the community. So there are some specifics that have been established. The developer has proposed a 50-foot front yard, a 15-foot side yard, a 50-foot rear yard. Also a bit different in terms of the covenants and restrictions and the sizes for outbuildings and detached garages. So it'd be a bit larger than what the city allows, as well as they're looking to allow for metal siding with the larger size and the more rural feel of these lots. They are 1 acre minimum density and for the PUD, and then what they're proposing for the R1, it does all line up with their concept plan, which the Plan Commission recently approved. And Plan Commission did recommend approval of this particular rezoning September 9th, 6-0.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilman Vilhauer.
Just a couple questions I'll direct towards Stacy. You said the lots are going to be 1 acre?
Yes. Yep, that is about the density, because some of the streets will be in a rural street section, and that would be the 1 acre density. So as you can see, maybe on my screen, I apologize. I think I stopped sharing.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question, Stacy, is are you referencing the lots in the PUD? Because our agenda packet has 2 acres or more for the PUD?
Sure. Yeah, yep, it would be a minimum of a 1 acre.
Okay.
So yeah, they are larger lots. So yeah, it'd be a minimum of a 1 acre with the rural street section
Okay.
that they're intending to use.
And then also, I know at the Planning Commission meeting, there was a discussion, some concern expressed about, even though that property is within city limits, there is going to need to be access to that property on some non-city streets. For example, 42nd Street was specifically referenced. Do you have any comments about that at this point, Stacy? I mean, any thoughts at all about that discussion?
That's something that we intend to continue working with the township on, and there is a more standard type of agreement. I understand perhaps City Attorney Roby or Urban Planner Hanton can expand further on that, but that is something that we would potentially like to see worked out between the township and the developer for construction traffic and any damage to the township road.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Schutte.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and for the record, I would agree with that insight to look at the traffic, because that happens to be in Ward C, and I walked that entire ward during the election, and a common concern that came out during my travels there was the access to that neighborhood, those neighborhoods there, the dollar store, pulling off of Highway 212, turning lane there, the challenges, kids going up and down the one road there to the lake or to the dollar store. So now as we expand this, absolutely, I know it's a concern for those neighborhoods out there. So just would, highly recommend to make sure we keep that on the radar.
Thank you. Councilman Danforth?
Thank you, Mayor. One question and a comment. The area that is noted down in the lower left corner of the picture where that's at 20th Avenue, now that is not within the city, is that correct?
Stacy, you can answer that.
Sure. I'm just going to zoom in and make sure I know exactly where we're checking on.
The lots and the homes in the lower left-hand corner of what you're showing right now?
Oh, yes, that's correct. This is all within the county still. Yeah,
Okay.
It has not been annexed.
Okay, so is it fair to say that what I'm seeing there from this pictorial, the view right now, is kind of what the once developed, what these lots would look like, correct? As far as outbuildings and size and that type of thing?
Yeah, I would state that, like, from the covenants, it wouldn't be too dissimilar.
Okay. My comment. Historically, I think there's a place for PUDs. There's no question about it, and I think there's some advantages to that. There are some allowances within that, I think, that bring back affordability and also brings into play some, some features within an area that maybe you can't have within a non-PUD area. But my only caution with any of these is that we don't look 10 years, 15 years down the road and then somebody says, you know what, we just don't want to have it a PUD anymore. Let's just bring this into the city. It's not a PUD. We have had that happen. By the time that happens, now we're dealing with all the things, all the reasons that made up the PUD, why they did it, now falls onto the city. So all I'm saying is, and it won't happen in my time here, but we just need to be cautious down the road, and I'd like that to go on to the record that we don't bring these things into the city, these previous PUDs that get approved, without some, most likely cases, some bringing it up, but to a standard that's acceptable to us within the city. And we have, like I said, we have seen that. Councilman Bueller, I think you've seen it as well when we were on the Plan Commission. So I think they're a good thing. I think this looks like a good thing, good use of the land. Just down the road, just make sure that if it's considered, which wouldn't surprise me at some point, that for it to come out of the PUD and just go into the standard city responsibility, that we be real cautious about that as we do it.
Thank you. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I kind of want to just point out that there was a lot of poor planning done on that previous, trying to hit on a little bit what Councilman Danforth was saying is, for example, 20th Avenue, that should have connected to North Pelican Lake Drive, or whatever that road is, North Pelican Lane, and 20th Avenue should have been connected at some point. And because of the poor planning, that can't happen here because there's a house in the way. And obviously there's other features too, like wetlands that you would have to work around. But it does concern me, and that's where I was just getting at with Councilman Danforth's comment. Is he's 100% right. We just need to be cautious when that comes for annexation, if it ever does. And I'm assuming it will, because there are benefits to that. You get city water, city sewer, and that comes at a cost to the city as well. And then I also just want to point out that there is going to be another half section of road, 42nd, which obviously makes sense because that's what the developer owns and they don't own the other side. But I guess our history of half sections of road have turned out poorly in the past, and they seem to fail pretty frequently. So I hope that doesn't happen here, but we should be cautious of that going forward too.
Thank you. Councilman Bueller?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question, Stacy, perhaps you could enlighten our listeners a little bit and explain, and if I missed it, I apologize, but why do they want a PUD? What are they looking for versus just zoning this R1? Is because of go ahead, I'll let you just explain. And then I have a
believe
follow-up.
that it's just the larger lot feel. We don't currently have a rural residential zoning district, and they would like to have a more rural feel, but still provide for a well-connected community, as they, are showing a connection here to 38 and then out here. And I know this is definitely something that we've urged them to work with the township, and we'll probably have further requirements with a final plat, this just being the PUD rezoning at this particular point in time, and then also a look generally at the lots. So I do think it's creating more of that feel of having a rural residential district where you can have a bit larger outbuildings, that type of thing. And I don't know, Brandy, if you have any other particular things that you would like to mention.
Yes, I do, actually. The lots to the west, Block 9 and Block 1, just directly west, adjacent to those lots, what is the intention for that? Do we know what development is going to go in there? So that would be lot 7, 16, and 2 to the west.
Okay, I'm going to ask Brandy for her help on this. I'm not certain. Are we over here?
For those of us with poor eyesight, yeah.
Directly west, the adjacent lots to the property that we're going to make a PUD out of.
Oh, okay.
Urban planner Brandy Hanton, would you like to comment?
Can you re-ask the question, Bruce? Councilman Bueller?
Sure, I can do that again. The property just to the west of the PUD area in the purple, the shaded in purple, that would be lot 2, 7, and 16. What is the intention for development there? Do we know?
The portions that are in the county still?
Yes. If all that purple is in the county,
talked.
yes, that's my question.
What's that?
I should say, whether it's in the county or not in the county, that adjacent property, are there any plans for development for that? I'm assuming there would be, and I'm just curious as to what that would be, what that looks like.
Right. They would, I know they've talked to the county with Luke Miller, and they would look at doing the same type of subdivision, but with it being contiguous to city limits, we would like to see that annexed in zone before it would be developed. And then as far as the services for that portion, those lots there that are in the county that were developed in the Lake Park District, those would have to be brought up to city standards. They would have to install their utilities and have the street conform to our engineering design standards before we would allow them to annex and zone.
Councilman Bueller, are you satisfied with that?
I can have a follow-up
Yes,
question.
follow-up, please.
Also, if those were to develop in a similar manner as to what you've got with the PUD, how would you access those streetwise? Would there be a change to this plat for street access? Because I don't see how that's possible. One of my concerns is that these would be developed into a commercial or maybe an R3, right adjacent to R1 or the PUD.
Right, and so 42nd serves as the major collector in that area. So if they did have transitional zoning and wanted to go with an R3 district, that could be appropriate. I think in their discussions with with the county right now, it was to implement similar subdivision with this PUD with the rural residential. But that isn't, they haven't applied for anything or proposed anything formal that we've seen.
The chair is going to interrupt. Stacy, I believe you have your screen is the one that's showing on our picture here. Could you please use your cursor to show us exactly the specific location we are discussing here? And make absolutely certain that what you and Urban Planner Hanton are discussing is exactly what Councilman Bueller and the rest of the council up here are thinking.
Yes, that's a good idea. I'm envisioning this land over here where my hand is, that is going to be west of 42nd, that is out in the county right now, and we have not had any formal proposals, as Urban Planner Hanton mentioned. Do I have the correct area?
Or Councilman Bueller, is that what you were asking about?
No. If you look at the orange lots,
Oh, okay.
just to the west, to the left of those outlots.
The lots in orange or
in the purple?
Okay.
In the purple.
Okay.
Okay, are we talking about here, or are we talking about over here?
In the purple directly
Okay.
to the west
Sure.
or the left, I guess, of the orange lots.
Oh, okay. So these also would be for residential in here. They're just large lot sizes and things, but yes, this would all be for the larger lot residential within that PUD. All of the purple lots would be included.
Thank you. And if I
Follow
You're welcome.
I've just got one other comment, and this goes to Councilman Paulson's issue with prior planning with half streets. I believe our ordinances did have, it did say that we would require half street for somebody planning and putting in a development along a street. Is that something that we need to revisit and make changes to for future development? Because I believe that's the ordinance that we followed when we did that. If we don't feel that's the right thing to do, then I think we need to revisit that and maybe make a change.
Thank you.
That's something, if I could, Mr. Mayor, address that quickly.
Yes, please.
So that is definitely something that it's a tough thing in many communities to know. That's something that we certainly would like to visit with Director Vonai about. I don't know. It looks like Justin Peterson, Assistant City Engineer, is also on, but it's definitely something we could do some research on and get back with the council on and potentially look for future direction on that.
I think since this is a first reading, that would be appropriate for the second reading. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to bring up the park dedication as well. I see that there's a bike trail easement that's being used as the park dedication, which I'm not opposed to. Is there a park in the general vicinity? And the reason I ask this is very far out from the city, and I'm assuming that there's a park just to the northeast, but it does concern me if that's and this kind of goes back on a comment I made earlier, and this is why I wanted to touch on it. I do think we need to look more at our park system, because we either need people to help with that or start reducing some larger parks. But this being so far away from our city limits in general, it does concern me that there's not a park for the children.
Thank you very much. Is that I'll just take that as a comment. All right. Councilman Shuddy.
Just to clarify that, it may not be close enough, but there's the mobile home park that's just right north of there, and there's a park in that area there that when I was walking that neighborhood during election, I found a nice tree to get some shade. And but no, so there is, but it's, like I say, it's just north of there in that mobile home park there. So,
thank you. Councilman Danforth.
On the park, you know, I'm a little bit familiar with the area you're referring to, but Colin, you make a good point. There really is no flow from this whole area up to that park that's up there. There's no continuity from south to north unless you go whatever street that is to the east there. But you know, so maybe that does need to get looked at from that standpoint. But Councilman Bueller, he confused me when he started talking about half streets. Are you talking about over on 42nd?
No, Mike, if I.
Yes, please do answer.
No, Mike, it was not related to this currently right now, I don't believe, but it was a comment that he felt like we had some poor planning in the past, and we've had issues with half streets. All I'm saying is, if it's in our ordinance that where developers develop on one side of a street and not both, if it's in the ordinance that we develop half a street, then if we don't think that's the right thing to do, then we need to make that change.
But
that needs to be changed in ordinance. That way developers know what their responsibilities are. And if that's what we feel is the right thing to do, we got to look at that as a council and our planning commission as well.
Councilman Danforth, would you like to?
I'm going to ask a question, and I got another comment here. But Mr. Bueller, does that apply only though when the city abuts county property? But if it was all the land in the city, they can't put a half street in, can they? When it's all within the city?
Councilman Bueller, would you like to answer that question?
Well, I would if I could. I don't know that I can. I think that's probably a good question for our urban planner. Okay. As far as county abutting to that same street, one side is city limits and the other is
right,
county.
And I know that
I honestly don't remember the answer to that, Mike. Sorry.
So here's a comment that I have, and again, Councilman Paulson touched on this. Is there a way on something like this where that 20th Avenue, even though that's not in the city of Watertown, should we be looking at continuity as far as our road system through those areas? You know, I know that he said there's a house there, but there's a lot of land there. Shouldn't there be some continuity with this land area? It's a large area. There's going to be a lot of homes, a lot of traffic there. That should connect to that 20th Avenue. It just seems like we should be doing that. Otherwise, you've got 20th Avenue, which most likely, again, at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if those homes eventually come back, just like they have to the east of CAX, come back and potentially look to bring that up to standard and bring it into the city. And if we don't do those things now before the land gets developed, we're stuck with a dead-end road.
I guess the chair would have a question back to Councilman Danforth. Is this information or, let's say, a proposal that you would like to see from our staff before we move forward with a second reading?
I think it should get looked at, because if we approve this at the second reading without some consideration of those things, then we're stuck with what we got. So I think, Mary, you're right. I think that's the case.
I think that's fair. I will just say from my perspective, I have had dealings with some homeowners out in that area already with some issues that they have had with the proposed bike path coming in the future. And there are just lots of questions because this is an outlier from the city limits of Watertown. And it probably does deserve some understanding of how this fits within the larger vision of the city of Watertown and how it connects both in roads and parks. And so it probably is not a bad idea. I'm not going to postpone a second hearing. I believe our city manager is about to say something, but I believe that the council is I think would be open to knowing that we have this vision taken care of. So City Manager Mack?
I just have a question so we can make sure that we're researching and providing the correct information. What is it exactly you'd like to have presented at the next reading?
Councilman Danforth, would you like to?
I don't have your answer. But
What?
if I can, I do have another. I want a point of clarification, if I can, on this issue.
Okay, then we'll loop back to get a question.
Yeah. Colin, you said.
Councilman Paulson.
Yep. When you mentioned that if it gets annexed, this is going to be annexed. It's going to be part of the city, right? This isn't going to be. It's going to be the city, so it's going to have. I'm assuming this is going to be a city sewer system. Not going to be.
Councilman Paulson, I'll allow you to answer it, but I'm not really sure why the question was addressed to you. You don't have any.
Because he had mentioned earlier that he made a comment about something like if it gets annexed. Well,
oh, okay.
I was referring to the southwest section of houses that are already there that are not in.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Because I'm assuming, because now that the sewer and water are going to be so close, that they will want to look at that in the future.
And I agree with you. I think that's going to probably happen. Okay, that answers that question. I got lost on when he said if. So, but I think there's some issues here. I think it looks like a good opportunity for the city, but I just think we've got some questions, Mayor. I think to have those questions asked and answered, which goes back to what
City Manager Mack, would it be all right in lieu of a specific question being asked tonight, worded tonight, unless someone can come up with one that we can get one to you in the next day or two?
I think that'd be great.
All right. And for the public watching, this is exactly why we have first readings, because a lot of times we don't know all the answers, and this is why we vet a topic before it comes up for official action. So, any further questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one thing if I could.
Please do.
So we did look at this a little bit to have maybe some kind of a connection coming through here. And basically it seemed as though like to have a road like kind of coming down through here, that was redesigned just due to the high water table, the floodplain, the wetland areas, just the general sensitivity of the land, and feeling that a road design would in that particular area would be very difficult to maintain over time.
All right, thank you.
Could I make one last comment too?
Yes, please do. Urban Planner Hanton.
Just to try to answer some of the questions that were thrown around. As far as the half street, that will come with the plat that'll come back to the city council, and we'll have the development agreement. And then that's where we'll spell out the obligations for the infrastructure improvements of that half street for 42nd. And typically we've been doing like with the Lakes of Willow Creek, if you remember, just recently, we did a waiver of right to protest for the adjacent lot, that when 42nd would be improved, then that owner at the time would be obligated to build that half street. And then just trying to look at that holistically though of there's the different situations. So it is hard to really get a requirement in ordinance to always stick by. And then one other comment is just with the joint jurisdiction area, that's where we work with the county on subdivisions that are adjacent to city limits or within the 3-mile distance, so that we can make sure that we are looking at the street system and adjacent zoning districts and whatnot.
All right,
So,
thank you.
If that clears anything up.
With that, the chair will move on to agenda item I and open a public hearing on the approval of resolution number 21-42, authorizing the issuance and making provisions for their payment of a sales tax revenue bond, Series 2021 Ice Arena. We'll begin staff comments with our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution 2142 is allowing the city manager and finance officer to issue bonds up to $20 million for the land acquisition and construction of an ice arena facility. The reason for the public hearing on this one is actually to allow us to meet the IRS code of 1986, allowing the flexibility for the nonprofits to use the facility. So that's really the only reason for the public hearing. Otherwise, there's really nothing more. I can answer any questions, but this would allow us to issue the $20 million. Just so the council and the public is aware, once the resolution passes, and then once we've kind of finalized the plans of the ice arena, the manager and I will sign and issue those bonds. And the interest rates do continue to stay low. Kind of what we had talked about in the couple months past, they're still at that same rate. So some of the projected numbers are sitting where they were. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Manager Mack, would you like to comment anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like just to share for council's information and for the public, while we continue to move through the design phase of this project, I think it's important to know that O&M, while we don't have a clear answer on that yet, is part of that discussion. When the design team met 2 weeks ago now, I think it was, or maybe a week ago, our owner's rep discussed potentially doing some work sessions coming in the near future to talk through O&M. Do we hire someone internally to manage the facility? Do we look at an outside firm? So those conversations are happening in tandem with design and location. I also think it's important to know that $20 million is all-inclusive. So as Kristen mentioned, that does include the purchase of the land, but it also includes the cost for our owner's rep and the cost for our architects. And I will attempt to answer any questions you might have as well.
Thank you very much. No further staff comments, so the chair will open up the public hearing aspect of this. Are there any comments, oral or written, in favor of this? Yes, please come to the mic, state who you are and who, if anything, you're representing. Wait, is the mic on?
Was it on? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jody Driscoll, and I was approached by some user groups that will be using the ice arena facility to raise some additional funds for this project. And I do believe we have a 501c3, it's called Build It Now, appropriately named, to fund or to raise the funds. And I just want you to know that I've been involved in some fundraising activities in the community. Scott and I have been here for 20 years. I am not a hockey mom. I love the sport, and for 20 years I think I've been hearing that we need some more ice. So I know we have some very eager families on the hockey side, on the skating side. I'm just representing the community, and as a business owner, I think it'll be a tremendous asset to show off the city of Watertown and build a top-notch facility. So that's why I got involved. And if any of you know me, I'm a little bit passionate about things and a little tenacious. So like I said, I've run some successful fundraisers, and I don't see this one being any different. So I'm in support of the moving forward with this. And like I say, I think you could have filled this room and more appropriately probably filled an arena with eager parents and community members. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there any further testimony in favor?
Hello, my name's Vince Foley. I'm the president of the Hockey Association. Thank you. She's right, it's been 20 years. Thank you all for your leadership.
Thank you very much. Any further testimony? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for questions or comments from the council. Councilman Danforth. First we need a motion, I'm sorry. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Councilman Danforth. Oh, no, questions and comments now.
Well, here's a question I have. When we built the wellness facility, we had a limit on what was defined as for the construction. Then the question came up, does construction include the FF&E or doesn't it? So here's my question on what we're doing tonight. Does it include this number? Does this include FF&E or does it not include, when we're talking about the $20 million for the bonding? Is it intended to include the FF&E or is that going to be outside of this number? That's a question, and I got just a couple comments that I think the public would want to hear.
So, yes, our understanding, based on the conversations with our owner's rep, is that this is all inclusive.
Okay, and I just want to make a comment based on, we hear on this, I have for a long time, and I'm in full support of what we're doing here, but we've heard for so long, build it right, build it right, build it right. Well, that building it right depends on who you talk to and what their thoughts are. We have to build something that we can afford, and that brings the greatest value to our community. It's fair to say, and I'm looking for a yes on this from the Mayor and Amanda here, as of yet, as we stand here today, the amenities and exactly what's in this building have not been defined yet. We don't know, because part of that is going to be driven by not only the cost to build it, but the cost to operate if there are those amenities. Is that a fair statement, that we don't know today what those are?
That's correct.
Okay.
Not exactly, yes.
Right. So, because I think that's important. There's a lot of work on this yet to know exactly, when the dust settles, what we're going to have. And so just so the public knows that. There's a lot of talk about what it should be, what could be. Today, we don't know that. And I think that's important as we move forward here. But
right.
I think we're in a position to move forward, see where we get with costs, see what we can do effectively.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The process that we're using, so the number one priority is 2 sheets of ice. Everything else that could come with it is being viewed as add-on. So we have the 2 sheets of ice. Do we add on dry land space? Do we add on restaurant space? Do we add on space to sell skates and those types of things? And when a package does get put together to bid, it will be bid as a base model plus alternates. So we really are, as Dick has mentioned several times, the base model, and then what are the frills that we could add that fall within our budget and within our ability to operate.
And the chair would also like to say this is exactly where the 501c3 bill that now comes into play, because the city's responsibility is to build the 2 sheets of ice and provide for the need of the community. A lot of these other things that can be added on, that's where the 501c3 comes in, because that's where it's actually more appealing to raise money for a specific item, like a locker room or a certain space or chairs or a area inside the arena for, let's say, a more lounge atmosphere for viewing a game or things like that. That's where the donations come in, because people like giving to a specific item. And that's where we need the 501c3 and the user groups and the community to step forward to, let's say, fill in what the city of Watertown can't do on its own. So the city of Watertown, we're fulfilling our responsibility and we're putting a cap on what we can afford. And our finance officer will concur with me that we can afford this. We've run the numbers, we've done this, we've mentioned this at several meetings already. We can afford this. This is a sales tax bond. Want to make sure that people know that your taxes are not going up, but the city is going to fulfill its responsibility after many decades. We can afford it. The user groups will come in to add on and hopefully make this the nicest ice facility in the state of South Dakota. So, Councilman Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. You've hit on a few of my points I'd like to make. But I would like to reiterate a few things. Maybe ask a couple questions if I might. First of all, you hit on this is not a general obligation bond. It's sales tax revenue bond, which means we are not increasing people's property taxes by doing this. So check that off. You referenced our finance officer opinion as far as affordability of this. We saw the projections and the numbers going out for the next, 30, 40 years. Next few years, yes, somewhat tight, but using fairly or very conservative sales tax growth revenue or sales tax growth revenue estimate. So affordability looks to be something that, yes, also we can check that off. We are limiting ourselves as a city to the 20 million. I think if this were open-ended project that we don't know what the costs are going to be, I think all of us up here would probably balk, but we are limiting ourselves to the 20 million by virtue of this bond. Now that's to say that that's where the user groups, the 501c3, et cetera, comes into play, that if these costs, in fact, are more than 20 million, that's where somebody else has to help us out as a city. But we are limiting ourselves as a city obligation to the 20 million. Now I do have a question, and I guess our Public Works Director is not here, but I guess I would ask the question, what impact, are we taking money away from street projects? You know, we heard a pretty passionate public comment earlier, but I guess I'd like to ask the question, how does this affect future street maintenance in the community? If someone could address that. I'll look at you, Manager Mack.
City Manager Mack, would you like to address that?
Thank you for the question. So the short answer is no, this does not impact our ability to improve and maintain roads. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but when we present the budget to you all for consideration next month, I think we're looking at doubling what we normally put in the budget for street maintenance and repair, overlays, things like that. So we're doing this in conjunction with recommending additional funding into the street program.
Okay, thank you. I'll address this next question to our finance officer. As I look at the bond resolution, we do have the option of early redemption or early payoff on these bonds. I mean, again, we're using conservative sales tax growth numbers that if our sales tax continues to grow as it is, we may be in a position at some point down the road. These are 30-year bonds, correct? But we do have the option of early redemption if our cash flow does allow it, correct?
That is correct. It would be similar to what we actually just did in 2020. When they become callable, we do have the option to refinance, to buy them out. And when we actually did that in 2020, we were able to save about $3.2 million by doing that. So we definitely do have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you, Finance Officer Bob Zine. We're not going to need this cash, or at least not the lion's share of it, until next spring sometime probably. Okay, what happens in the meantime? When do we get the cash? When do we start incurring interest? Kind of walk us through that part a little bit, Kristen.
So that is the time frame that the manager and I could kind of discuss. So our only drawback of not issuing the bonds right away is the interest rate would go up. So okay, our interest rate will lock in when we issue the bonds at that time. But you do have the opportunity. When we did our last $30 million worth of bonds, we did take those in 3 parts. So with this one too, we could take an initial $10 million just to know that that's the interest rate at there. And then within like the next 3 to 6 months, take the next $10 million, just so then you're not paying the interest on that. So that's definitely an opportunity that we have to just kind of watch it as we get a closer timeline. Okay,
thank you.
Yep.
Just a couple of closing comments now. You know, we've heard this before. Interest rates are low. We're probably at about a 60-year historical low for interest rates. Now is the time to do it. I'm looking at Attorney Foley back there. The 501c3 is aptly named Build It Now, or will be named Build It Now. We've been having this conversation for 20 to 25 years. It's time to move at this point and get this project underway and behind us. And at the same time, let's build it right while we're doing it. I've heard that time and time again. Yes, we want to build it. We also want to build it right as we're doing it. So with that, I really hope that we can get behind this as a community, as a council, and move forward with this project. We've made a lot of headways in recent months. Let's keep it going.
Thank you, Councilman Villauer. Sorry for taking a couple of your points, but thank you very much. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank each and every person out in this crowd and all of the members that were involved on the committees that have happened over and over and over and over for the last 20 to 25 years, because this is an ongoing conversation, and we're finally to a point where we're approving a funding source. We just need to make sure that we're doing it right. And I know I'm just reiterating what everyone else is saying, but without everyone that's in the crowd right now, we wouldn't be at this point. And everyone that's worked on this constantly. And we're at a point where we can do it. Our revenue is looking really good with our growth here. And this has been a huge need in this community for far too long. So I just wanted to point out that I wanted to thank all of them.
Thank you. Councilman Tupper.
Kind of an echo of what Councilman Paulson just said, but I guess the only one that's really in the crowd that's been involved all those 20-some years is Vince. So my hat goes off to him for never giving up on the community, put it that way. But we have, over the last couple of weeks, I've had nothing but positive input from people in the community. I haven't had one person come and say they were against this. And I think everybody remembers when I was on the council before, I was a huge backer of this. So I do appreciate the support from the community. I appreciate all the hard work and dedication that's went on with not only the city staff and the council members and the mayor and the city manager, but the people in the community that have never given up. And I know there's a lot of you sitting out there tonight, and I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to fundraising, you definitely picked the right person, because Jody don't know how to take the word no. So hats off to all of you for being so supportive of this, and it's going to be something that Watertown's going to be proud of for a lot of years.
Thank you. Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, just bringing another added perspective to this. Months back, I visited with probably 200 or 300 people from Ward C, and interestingly enough, many topics were brought up, and only one time was the ice arena brought up. And so I know what was brought up was a lot of other issues as well. Streets is always a major issue, and there was other things that were brought up we visited on. So I was cautious, I guess, on this topic as well for me, as far as financially, what are we doing financially here, and how much with all the other projects we're doing. I've even asked questions at these meetings about from City Hall to street maintenance to the ice arena. Where's the wisdom lie with where do we move forward or where do we not? Because there's some valid concerns about the streets and the maintenance, and especially streets. It's not just an election topic. It's a real time topic that we need to be addressing. So I do appreciate Amanda, City Hall doing some work on upping that budget. Hopefully there's even some more conversations on that in the years to come with some sort of just a grander plan. That said, a month or two ago I was up on the proposed area where the ice arena is going to be, and I was looking around seeing Terex over there and all the development going on, and knowing that there's talk about a fire hall potentially someday. As the city grows, we got to think about where do we, the response time and me, I'm not an ice guy. As much as Vince would have liked my kids to play hockey, they played soccer and football instead. But so for me, it wasn't about ice, and I realized that there's a lot of people in this town. It's not necessarily about ice. And so I looked around, and I was thinking about it, going, if I look at the development that's being projected and what this can do for the city, for the area it's potentially being proposed, it started making more sense to me from that angle. Not about ice, just bringing another perspective. If this can fast track our revenues, and we can get our for example, response for the fire department, if we can do some more work to help be able to respond to that area of the community when people are traveling to Watertown, or people working at some of those industries out there, and they need some potential. Who knows what, God forbid that those things don't happen, but someone has a health issue. This has the potential to fast track, I believe, moving even from that. For some people, that's going to be more important than even the ice. So as of right now, I do stand in favor of this, because there's more to this than just ice. And so hopefully others from the community can help see that perspective as well, that it's as much as it's about ice and it's an ice arena. I get that. But there's a bigger picture that I'm starting to see as well that this will do for the community. So I just wanted to share that perspective with everybody.
Thank you. Any further comments from the council? Well, you'll forgive the chair, but I have to say at least a little something. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has not given up on this project. That means everyone out in the community who've been out there, honestly, since I was a teenager, I've been hearing this. So I want to give credit to where credit is due, the people who have never given up. I want to thank the council and the staff for helping support moving this project forward. To me, this is an item of vision, a vision for what we think the city of Watertown should be and can be going forward. We've already knocked off a couple different things on our list, such as the downtown park. We're addressing City Hall, street department, streets, all of these things. This is not an either-or proposition. This is not either we get ice or we lose something else. This is not a winners and losers. People who use ice are not the winners, and people who don't use ice are not the losers. The community of Watertown, all of us, are winners when we bring a facility like this into town that solves a quality of life issue, that brings money into town, that increases the profile of the city of Watertown. All of us are winners when we do something right like this. It's not winners and losers, it's all winners if we do this right, and that's what I want to stress to the community. There's never going to be a better time than now to do this. Interest rates are low, sales tax revenue are high. We already have, I want to stress, $3.75 million roughly donated to this project and more to come. And I just think that this is the time to do it, and I believe that the council is with me. I want to thank them for their bold vision on this as well, moving the community of Watertown forward. Thank you very much. With that, the chair will call a vote. All those in favor of the approval of resolution number 21-42, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. With that, the chair will move to item J, which is the approval of purchase agreement with J&J Land Sales LLC for the purchase of land on which the city's multipurpose two-sheet ice arena will be located. We'll begin with city input from our city attorney, Matt Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. Can't have an ice arena without land, huh? So the title summed up the purchase agreement, the intent of the purchase agreement, a couple of key details of the agreement. Purchase price is $500,000 to purchase lots 1 through 7 and the Willow Creek addition, which would be sufficient for a two-sheet ice arena, as well as room to expand to a third sheet if the city so chooses in the future. The contingencies here to be noted, of course, the effectiveness of this action, approving the purchase agreement, the effectiveness of the sales tax revenue bond that was just approved by the council. Of course, that's subject to publication in a 20-day period prior to effectiveness. And then the seller, J&J Land Sales LLC, is required to bring the land up to essentially a satisfactory status that is suitable for a facility of this type to be built upon. And should the city choose, we can engage a third party to determine that the land is ready to be. Am I missing something? What's going on?
I'm sorry, City Attorney Roby. Tell you what, I want you to finish your testimony without any further comments from the council, and then I will address the question to you. But I'm sorry for the interruption.
My tie or something?
That is our fault. That is my fault. I will take responsibility for that.
No problem.
Does anyone on the council wish for City Attorney Roby to backtrack even a little bit? Okay. Sorry for that, Matt.
That's okay. No, I was mostly done. I just the final contingency is the seller bringing the land up to satisfactory status for the arena to be built upon, and the closing date, the targeted closing date, is December 1st of this year.
Thank you very much, City Attorney Roby. I will ask Councilman Vilhauer, would you like to address the question?
Yeah, I guess, and I apologize. I was the one that was causing the disruption up here. I did not see that as part of our agenda packet. Did I miss it on my end, or is it there, rest of you guys? Oh, it is now? Okay. Okay, so it is out there as a public document now?
Correct.
Okay. And I do have a question now besides that.
Actually, I'm sorry, I need to make sure that all city staff testimony is done.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we need a motion as well, so. Yes, just to clarify, that it was in the agenda packet, it was just added a little bit later than normal, but it is in there, so thank you. With that, the chair will close, well, actually, it's not a public hearing, but the chair needs a motion to approve the purchase agreement.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Councilman Tupper, if you don't want to start off, I'd go to Councilman Vilhauer. Councilman Vilhauer.
Only question I've got is, and not having a chance to review the document now, I know with the MOU that had been in place, which is kind of somewhat gone by the wayside, I mean, there were stipulations in there that J&J would make sure the land is suitable and bring it up to whatever specs we needed for construction of such facility. I mean, is that written in as part of the purchase agreement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Danforth.
This is kind of a curiosity question, kind of a chicken and the egg thing here, but it is our goal to, as soon as we are prepared to do so, to order the steel, because that's our biggest concern in regards to lead time, I believe, correct? And potentially cost shifts as well. What is Plan B? Now, this is a what if, because I try to look that way at times. What if they're not able to bring this site up to suitable means for us? Because that closing is on December 1st, and we're looking to order steel before December 1st. That's really not well, it is. It's tied to this issue, but how does that work if
Mayor, if I might.
if the things don't stack up just right?
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you. Working with Tegra, with Dick Strasberg, he's assured us that there should not be any issues with that they can engineer the fill to allow us to build on that property. I feel very confident, and especially with him and with our architects, I think they concur with that. I don't think there's going to be any issues, Mike.
Sorry for anyone listening. We're getting a little feedback on council microphones on the right side. It's a little bit like Beatles' Hard Day Night feedback a little bit. But City Manager Mack?
Sure. I would also concur with Councilman Bueller's comments, but also add, and we talked about this at our last design team meeting, that should something go awry and we decide that this project is not moving forward after we've placed the steel order, we can cancel the order. We would be out some design costs, but we would not be obligated to go through with the purchase of the steel.
Can I make one more comment?
Councilman Bueller.
Thank you for Councilman Danforth's information. We did soil testing, and for the public's information as well, we did all the soils testing some time ago, and certainly there would be additional soils testing moving forward to make sure that we are in compliance with the necessary construction needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have recused myself from voting on this, but I just want to kind of answer some of that too from the developer standpoint. We have no issues from our standpoint either correcting the soil that needs to be corrected. Like Councilman Bueller said, there has been soil borings already done that confirm that thought, and as soon as we start putting utilities in, we're going to be pretty deep already. So we will, we don't have an issue correcting that soil, and I don't think that there will be any issues moving forward.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Mayor,
City Attorney Roby.
if I might just, to Councilman Danforth's question, just regarding the legal document itself. So the targeted closing date's December 1st. There's language providing for some additional time in there to allow any of the other contingencies to occur. And the final deadline in there is January 1st. So essentially, if in the unlikely event that the corrections aren't able to be made, and January 1st comes, and we haven't closed yet, there's language in here giving us the ability to retract the purchase agreement. But it sounds like that won't be something we'll have to entertain. But
Thank you. Councilman Bueller.
This is for Attorney Roby. Just to make it clear, if by some odd chance that this would be referred, which we certainly hope that would not occur, we would not be obligated to this property, correct?
that's correct. There's one of the contingencies is that the funding, the resolution you're talking about, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So if the resolution is referred and fails to go into effect after the vote, this purchase agreement will be null and void.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? With that, the motion is to approve the purchase agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item K is the approval of the lease termination agreement and mutual release with the Watertown Senior Activity Center, terminating its lease with the city for property at 301 East Kemp Avenue. We'll begin testimony by going to our city attorney, Matt Roby.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, the title is pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of catch everybody up, as everybody should know, the Watertown Senior Activity Center is planning to move into a new space identified as Space 101 in the Generations on First building that's being constructed. And once the seniors are fully moved into that space and are fully operational there and have had sufficient time to vacate all that they need to out of the Senior Activities Center, the current facility that is a city-owned property, that this document would be an agreement to terminate the lease. Again, it is as the cover sheet there explains, it was a 99-year agreement that was signed into in 1981, and you'll also see attached to the agenda the lease that they've entered into with Generations on First LLC, which is another 99-year agreement for $1 a year, essentially the same deal that we had provided them. And I did speak with the seniors last week. You know, it sounds like there's maybe some uncertainty as far as when they'll actually be in the new space, but let me just double check here. I think this would the cancellation will be effective October 15th, but no later than December 31st of this year. I think that'll be sufficient time. I'll present the document to them, assuming council approval tonight, and hopefully they'll go ahead and sign it.
Thank you very much. Is there any further city staff testimony? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for the approval.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Any comments or questions from the council?
Just my only question is to Attorney Roby. So it is in there that basically when they move is when the lease will be terminated, when they vacate, with no later than December 31st.
Correct. And I originally I had picked an earlier date before I talked to Dennis, but again, it sounds like there's some uncertainty as far as that timing goes, so I extended it to the end of the year, figuring that would be sufficient. The developer has indicated they think that they'll be able to move things on the weekend of the 9th and 10th, I believe,
Yep.
over to the new facility. So hopefully that December 31st will be more than enough time. But yes, there is language in that says that until they're able to fully vacate the property and be fully operational in the new facility.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the lease termination agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item L, authorization for the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with Carlson Detman Consulting for Human Resources Services, and authorization for the finance officer to issue a special check. To begin city staff testimony, we will go to our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. This agreement, I've mentioned a couple of times to you all that we wanted to engage with a consultant to do a comprehensive review of our personnel manual, our HR practices, and our benefit structure so that we could look at planning for future. This this came up during negotiations. We actually would have brought this to you sooner, but at the time, Carlson Detman had indicated that they could just invoice us for this project, and we learned last week that they actually needed a contract in place, and all contracts need to go through the council. We've identified the funding for this project both through the city manager and the human resources manager budget, and I would stand by for questions.
Thank you. Any further testimony? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion for the authorization. Motion made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Bueller. Councilman Paulson, would you like to begin? Any questions or comments open to the council? Question from the chair, how much are we talking here, money-wise?
It's $4,000.
Thank you very
They'll
much.
have their recommendations completed by the end of October, which does give us time to then convene, not just department heads. My goal is to have some ancillary staff involved in reviewing the recommendations so that we could bring personnel manual changes to you all by the end of the year to go into effect in January.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to authorize the agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any old business to come before the council? Any new business? The chair actually has some new business. The chair would like to make known to the council and to the city of Watertown that we'll be beginning an initiative to review the boards and committees and liaison positions for the city of Watertown. The background information for this is the impetus is a more responsible government, and the transition to Watertown's new form of government, the city manager form of government, gives us a wonderful opportunity to see what we could be doing better going forward in our community. Some of those ideas could be cutting red tape, downsizing unnecessary bureaucracy, and the goal is just to see how we can be doing things better for the community going forward. After the most recent election, when I became mayor, there were 13 boards and committees that were identified as the mayor's responsibility to appoint people to. Since that point, I have found 8 more boards and committees that exist in some form or another in the city of Watertown. So that's 21 boards now, and I can pretty much assure the council and the community that there were other boards created over the years with either official power or unofficial power from previous mayors that may still be in existence. We still do not know. I'm still learning of some. And hopefully after tonight's call, I might learn about more. 3 boards were formally established in city ordinances. 2 boards were required by ordinance, but might be questionable going forward, and those would be the Public Works and the Finance boards, because we actually, even tonight, we didn't even meet as a Public Works board. It's just something perhaps we could be doing our business better. I think we, by and large, think that this form of government that we're going into is getting leaner and better and doing better for the city of Watertown, and this is just one of those things that we want to keep an open mind about. Several sections referred to powers given to councils that should likely be cleaned up, such as the Public Works having our task to deal with illicit discharges. That's in city ordinance. And if we need to clean that up because of certain language, we had to clean up a lot of language when we transitioned to the city manager form of government. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is a way to do business better. But it allows us to look at our ordinances and see what can be cut or what could be done better. Several were mentioned in ordinances that have questionable governance, things like I didn't even know about. We have a civil service board, a railroad crossings and guard board, and a street committee. Those are all in ordinances just from doing a search. There are possibly a lot more. I did a search through our ordinances, and such as there are 568 references to boards, and I wasn't able to go through all of them, but that's how I found some of these. There are, however, no references whatsoever in city ordinance to liaison positions. But there are 7 boards currently that have liaisons, and several have been mentioned by citizens that there are other boards that have been created. Boards and committees have experienced some issues related to council attendance or council participation or council feedback. I will say, as the chair of the airport board, I will take full responsibility that I sat in on airport board meetings where very big renovation and deals were discussed, and it was brought back, and I could have done a liaison report, but that was not the culture of the council at the time to really give that feedback proactively to the council. This is an opportunity that I think the full council we want the vision of the full council. That is what our task is, to move the community forward. So if the liaison position is not fulfilling that duty of bringing information from these committees back to the council, then we need to figure out how we can do that better, so that not just one person, the liaison, is aware of what's going forward, but all of the council is aware of it going forward. And we could find ways to do that better is basically the goal of this position. Different liaison positions have different levels of power. Currently, 3 boards have council appointees that serve as voting members. The others do not. Perhaps that could be looked at, because there's a differential in power, and you could definitely question that. Some boards and committees receive city funding while others do not. Some of the committees and boards have the power to spend money while others do not, even without council approval. Some entities that receive city funding have no city interaction, like no liaisons, no reports back to us. That's also something that I think could be looked at for the city of Watertown, so that taxpayers know that we're paying close attention to all aspects of this. Going forward, the recommendations that the chair has is, I just want to find out exactly how many boards and committees we have, what their powers are, who is on them, what council interaction they have, when they meet, and what authority they have. I want to review each board and committee as to what it does, its importance, and what is the best avenue going forward. We will approach this with no preconceptions. Perhaps these boards need more power. Perhaps they need less. Perhaps they need more members. Perhaps they need less. We don't know. We're going to approach this with no preconceptions, but just with the eye of how can we do the city of Watertown better by going forward. After a time unspecified, I'm thinking we need 6 months to fully understand where we're at, and at that point, I would ask the council to come forward. We will bring forward changes, either in policy or ordinance. I will look at our city attorney, Matt Roby, who claims that he loves digging down into the nitty-gritty of ordinances, and I actually like doing it too. I had fun going through this, but I just didn't have time. But yeah, we are nerds, as Councilman Buehler says. But this is something, words matter, and the ordinances matter because it gives the power to do something or not to do something. And if we don't have the words to give the power, perhaps we shouldn't have the organizations that we have granted power to as shadow governments. That's just something that I believe in. It's more responsible government. And all of this should be done with the goal of empowering the council's vision and a positive direction for the city. That's my initiative. That's what I see going forward. We can have comments or questions on this, but this is going to be an ongoing proposal, and I'll make sure that all of the council members are not only, I want all of us involved. We have to come forward with a plan that, because we have to separate us as far as we can't have more than 3 in a room dealing with this, but we will find a way to have all of us involved and get all of us where our voice is heard, and we want community involvement as well. I think I already talked that one to death, so any further new business? Councilman Vilhauer.
A couple of, I'm not sure if it's new business necessarily, but a couple of questions to ask. Under consent agenda, we approved various snow removal bids. Will Street Superintendent Boehner be giving a presentation? I'm looking at our city manager here regarding plans for the upcoming winter season for snow removal. Typically he does in the fall, so I'm guessing that's on the...
If he typically does, then I see no reason not to do that.
Next question, I hesitate with some trepidation to ask, but I will anyway. With the recent mandate coming from the president concerning vaccinations, I'm looking at our city attorney, our city manager. What does that mean for Watertown? Any initial speculation on that?
We don't have a clear answer yet. There's some discrepancies between if we are considered a contractor or an award recipient from federal dollars. At this time, we don't see that it is necessary to implement a vaccine mandate for our employees. We obviously encourage that and encourage good practices related to COVID, but should we get to a point where that becomes a necessity, we will certainly fill everyone in. On that front, we have, just today actually, had some discussions related to COVID. We are seeing an uptick in positive cases within our staff, so we may be looking at implementing some mitigation strategies here in the future. Right now, we're using the honor system and hope that people respect their colleagues, and if you're sick, stay home. If you've been exposed, we have some procedures in place to allow you to be at work, but maybe isolate in your office, wear a mask if you're going to be around other people. So that's how we're handling it so far.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to make a statement on the COVID stuff. I think it's been getting crazy again in the United States in general, not necessarily South Dakota. The mask mandates, I think there's been some unconstitutional and governmental overreach from our federal government. And obviously, I think that there's a lot of challenges ahead from all the states that will be challenging that. But I just wanted to go on record saying that I do not support that. And I think that obviously putting policies in place, obviously if our staff is becoming sick, I think that is definitely a right direction that we need to go. But I don't support mask mandates. I don't support vaccine mandates. So I'm just putting that on record, saying that if I don't support them, I won't expect someone working for an agency underneath me, whether that be at work or at the city, to support them necessarily. And obviously each person has their own views, and I'm only one person on this board and in this city, but I just wanted to go on record.
Thank you. Any further? City Manager Mack?
I guess just to respond to that comment a little bit, should we come to the decision from a legal perspective that the mandate does affect city employees? I don't know that it does right now. I don't think that it does. We could be looking at a situation where if we refuse to comply with the mandate, we have to pay back millions of dollars worth of grant funds that we've received. I mean, our airport is a prime example, upwards of $20 million. I don't know that it's going to come to that, but at some point, I also don't know if we really have an option. And this is city employees, not the city at large. But I guess just to reassure you all that this is a conversation that we take very seriously. It's not something that just, oh, by the way, go get a shot. The other thing I think to be cautious about when talking about mandates is that there are opt-out options for people. There are also workarounds. So if you choose not to be vaccinated, you can be tested once a week. So we'll be looking at all of our options if something like that does come to fruition. We're not at that point yet, but I'll take my advice from John Grisham down there. He tells us what we can and can't do.
Thank you. Any further new business?
Mayor, if I can chime in real quick.
City Manager, City Attorney.
Excuse me. What? Oh.
It's not you, Matt.
Okay.
Matt is not going to talk anymore.
Well, I was just gonna comment generally on the mayor's initiative here. I think that one of the things one of the overarching questions I think when it comes to the boards, committees, liaisons, informal boards, etc., is how much what level of comfort does council have delegating their authorities? And so, because a lot of what it comes down to, statutorily, there's ways to delegate authorities, and there's ways to take those authorities back to the council. And so, I just would ask, just maybe put a plug to keep that in mind. Think through that as we talk about some of these boards and committees. Because if with a change in form of government, if the council says, you know what, maybe the authority we delegated to XYZ board, maybe we should take that back since we're not involved in the day-to-day as much anymore. That's something that could be done. So. Something to think about. And then the other thing about calling me a nerd, I would much rather talk about the governance of our organization than PUDs like you two.
Touche.
I will not call that out of order because I agree with you.
Somebody
Struck
woke
a
up
nerve
on the
there,
wrong side
Mike.
of bed. So we're puds.
All right, thank you very much.
I got one quick question.
Councilman Tupper?
Can you start over on this?
No, thanks. Well, after I beat up liaison positions, any liaison member reports? Councilman Villauer.
Okay, I'll make this quick. Two things from the boards that I attended within the last month. On the utility board, a couple things actually there. They recorded record electrical usage back on July 27th. So that's just something worth noting. If I got my numbers right, 77 megawatts. So if Steve Laner's listening in, if I screwed that up, I apologize. But anyway, that might be worth noting. And also, they are experiencing, I'm guessing we probably are seeing the same thing, some serious supply chain issues. They're ordering things months sooner than they normally would. So I'm guessing we're probably sensing some or seeing some of that same thing on the city side as well, but real concern on their part, and they're trying to be proactive. On the Upper Big Sioux board that I sat in on last week, just an announcement, because this is public information, Roger Foote, who has had that position for 20 years probably, or been involved 20 years, is retiring April 22nd. So I think there's probably going to be some conversations had as far as where we go forward with that entity. Has served a valuable purpose over the years, but Roger is retiring along with his expertise, obviously, here in a few short months. So that's it.
Thank you. Any further liaison member reports? Seeing none, any announcements? Seeing none, we have no need to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2. And the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilman Bueller, seconded by Councilman Schutte. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Good night and God bless, Watertown.